Welcome back. We're here with an incredible episode of On the Subject. I'm your host, Michael Vilardo, co-founder and CEO of subject.com. You know where to find us, but we have an incredible educator here today. We are in the heart of the country, in Michigan, one of my home states. I went to high school really close to here in Pioneer High School in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and we have someone who's a Chippewa, fire up chips,
That's right.
who's been in education for over 20 years and has inspired so many young people to have incredible lives, and we're so indebted to his service to students. Tim Baldwin from Enterprise High, welcome to the show today. Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate you having me, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how did you get into education? What made you so passionate about helping young people?
So when I was younger, I never even thought about education. I wanted to go into business management or something like that because I always had an entrepreneurial business mind. I took some classes in high school. And then I got to college. I was at CMU, and a couple of my friends were taking education classes. And I started thinking about all of my friends in Flint that didn't graduate high school, that had tough experiences in school. And that was never my experience. No matter what I was going through growing up, there was always a teacher there who had my back, from Mrs. Holbrook in fourth grade, Mr. Guthrie when I got to middle school, Zeus Marshall, Rich Reed, Grace White in high school. There was always somebody, always an educator that saw something in me when I didn't even see it in myself. So I wanted to do the same thing for young people.
That is beautiful. Look at that. He remembers specific teachers that impact his life, and that's the power of teachers, and that's the power that these heroes of society have to us. And that's why I always want to start with a moment of gratitude. Thank you for everything you've done for your students. So let's dig in more to that. So you're from Flint, Michigan,
Yep.
which there's the Flint Firebirds there now, OHL hockey team. Good team if you ever want to go
Oh,
back.
okay. That's what's up.
And they have a cool program. But Flint, it's a incredibly historic area, but definitely probably has some really tough neighborhoods to grow up in. And I think that's really powerful in education when you think about being able to go through a public school system that you were able to learn so much about how you could be able to impact young lives. What did you notice different about Flint versus now where you're at Enterprise, Warren Woods, that you're like, okay, maybe we can make some more change if we do this or this differently?
So for me, I didn't see Flint as a rough area.
Yeah.
It didn't appear that way until I got older, and then hindsight. You know, it was just growing up
Yeah,
in the
status quo is
neighborhood.
what you're
Yeah,
used to.
exactly. I grew up on the north side of Flint
Yep.
very shortly after General Motors had left.
Yep.
Height of the gang era, height of the crack era, and me and my best friend were still able to walk to kindergarten.
I love that.
So it wasn't, it wasn't what everybody thinks of Flint when they immediately hear Flint. So I think about the resilience and the family and the community, and I could name neighbors from block to block, who looked out for us growing up. And when I think about education and I think about the way I grew up, I want to bring that to my students at Enterprise.
Yep.
I want to bring that family atmosphere, that loving environment. I've never been afraid to tell my students I love them.
I love
And
that.
I,
That's
and
amazing.
I tell them that flat out, and I hear it back, and
That is so cool.
yeah, thanks.
That's really
Yeah.
cool. So you talk about that leading from love.
hmm
I think there's a lot of stigma in the education space that it's very cut and dry, a little bit boring, a little bit antiquated. You're bringing emotion into it, which I think is really unique because not everyone brings that to work. How have you seen that impact your students? How has that made them better? How has that made them feel more supported to, make mistakes and take risks?
So on my way here, and I haven't had a chance to respond yet,
Yeah.
I got a text from a class of 24 grad.
Wow.
So he's already gone. I still get text messages and phone calls and kids that pop in to visit because they know that we care. They know they're going to get honesty from us. They know they're going to get compassion, but there's also expectation. We're not afraid to push, and they're not afraid to be pushed. And I think that it's easy to think that, it's got to be the way it was back in the day or kids today. Every generation of educators has said that about kids.
Yes.
Every generation of parents
Yep.
has said that about kids.
Back in my day.
Yeah, back in my day, uphill both ways,
Yeah.
2 miles in the
Yeah.
snow and all that. But it doesn't change what kids need. And they need compassion, they need expectation, and what comes with that is love. And I tell my kids when I'm meeting with them, and usually it's with a parent, and them feeling like, their parents bagging on them about one thing or another. The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference.
Yeah.
And if someone becomes indifferent to education, if someone becomes indifferent to you and your feelings, then that's when you have a problem. So we never want to show indifference with our students.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your innovative mindset, and that's what we're really trying to do. We're only inviting people who are incredibly innovative on the podcast so they could share their insights and inspire other leaders in the industry to be more innovative. And you talked about how so many people get in this, the mindset of, hey, these kids, what are we doing? Well, why are they not like how I grew up? And that's one of the big pieces we want to dig into on education is why do a lot of the classrooms still look somewhat like the mid 1800s? The 8 hours sit in a desk, you do what I say, and if you don't, you're a terrible kid, you're a terrible person, and you don't deserve adult success. That's not what we believe here. We believe that every student deserves an opportunity at an incredible life, and just because they may not do well in a class doesn't mean they're a bad person, doesn't mean they're not talented or smart. Maybe you're not connecting with them. And so, like, how do you see education innovating over the next 5 to 10 years? Like, what would you like to see more of?
Connection.
Yeah, connection, the heart.
Connection. Every person that I've talked to, whether it's people from the Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta, whether it's David Hyber, he's the CEO of Concentric Education Solutions.
Yeah, amazing.
It's about connection. Everybody that I've ever talked to, moving the needle, doing anything great and innovative for kids, still comes down to connection. I was at the Ron Clark Academy in July, and it looks like Hogwarts in there.
Oh, I'm a huge Harry Potter guy.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
You guys should really
I would
really
love
take
to.
a trip
I would
there.
love that.
It's set up like a teaching college, or like a teaching hospital. The classrooms here, and then it's like stadium seating. But it's so incredible. I found myself getting emotional sitting there looking at fourth graders do quadratic roots, thinking about my own children and what I have hopes for from them. But talking to the kids there, talking to Ron, they don't even notice the dragons flying around on the ceiling and all that stuff anymore. It's about the connections with their teachers, with their classmates, with their families. Connection's the number one thing. So you don't need money to do that.
No, you just need to actually care. You have to really care about people, care about students, and you can't fake that.
Right.
You can't fake it. And I think it's so interesting because so many people get into education for the love of the game. They care about the kids. But then, to your point, some people get desensitized to it 20, 30 years in, and they forget why they got in it. They got in it for the love of the kids, but then it could potentially become, hey, no, this is my career. I just want to get promoted, and hey, I'm not as close in age with the kid. Like, how do we keep people still young in the mind and saying, hey, like, you chose this path because you love kids. Like, we are all about caring about these young people have an incredible life.
So we have to support our educators.
I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Plain and simple. Support them. Be open to their new ideas. Hopefully they're open to new ideas, and making sure that they understand. And I tell my teachers this: you can't put it on when you get out of the car and then take it off when you leave the building, because kids pick up on that immediately and they notice. So when there is a teacher that's been in the game a long time, usually they got some pretty good ideas.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're not open to hear new stuff. But the people that I named from my high school, Rich Reed, Grace White, Zeus Marshall, they were all career educators. And right up until retirement, they were all right there with it. We called him Zeus because he taught mythology.
Oh, I love that. Great
and,
name.
And when I wanted to be a teacher, decided I wanted to be a teacher, I reached out to those three, Zeus and Rich were English teachers, and Zeus taught mythology. And then Grace White was my assistant principal. And she came during my 11th grade year. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't a super scholar, even though I was an honor roll student. And she sought me out during the first week of school and started taking me to like Rotary Club things and, exposing me to so much more in the city of Flint that I didn't even know was out there. And so I think, keeping those connections and those relationships with students will keep you young as an educator.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And when you think about some of the, the past of education and some of the, first movers in digital curriculum like the Ingenuity or Apex of the world, how did you get in contact with them and how are you able to evaluate products and continue to look for new things and new innovation?
Sure. So when I got to Enterprise, we already had a program in place, and I won't name it because I don't want to put anybody on the spot or anything like
Of
that.
course, yeah. We're agnostic here.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But what I noticed about it was super antiquated. Like I'm looking at even the fashion of the presenters, you could tell they're wearing stuff from like the 90s or the
Yeah,
early
yeah.
2000s. And I'm seeing student after student take these same classes through the years, and it's the same videos. It's the same subject matter, and it's just like droning. So when our contract came up and the state of Michigan said, hey, you got to have a teacher of record
Yep.
for your classes, which makes all the sense in the world to me.
Yeah, I agree.
So when they said that, we started, looking and kind of shopping around, and we found Subject. I think I just like searched, online learning
Yeah.
platforms or credit recovery platforms, and you and Greg and Blake and Holly, it's the customer service, the innovation, even before we put everything up to bid for the district, I went through and I started looking at classes. What are the offerings? Watching the videos, doing the demos and stuff like that. And I said, this is something that my kids will really be able to get into. I walked into a classroom one day and our students turned their phones in, but there was a young woman on her phone and I thought she was texting somebody. We got a pretty good relationship, so I'm kind of razzing her a little bit. And she said, no, this is my financial literacy class.
Yes.
And she was taking a financial literacy class on Subject that mirrored text messaging, something that the kids want to do all day,
Yep.
every day anyway. So it was just amazing to see that. And that's, that should be, a feather in you guys' cap that it really shows and mirrors exactly what the kids want to do.
Well, we really appreciate it, and we appreciate you being such an innovative leader and willing to give us a chance. And we just want to continue to work with the most innovative minds in education. And with that, I'd love to be able to have a really nice wrap to and say, hey, if you were to speak to your younger self or any 22, 23-year-old who's thinking about going into teaching, how can you be the most impactful teacher possible? I think I know where you're going to go with this, but how do you inspire and go into teaching as a young person today and have an incredible life helping young people?
So you already know, make connections. I remember when I was at a job fair at Eastern Michigan, and there was an assistant principal from Birmingham schools, and he walked up to me in the in the big
Yeah.
hallway, and he said, "Is it more important that your students love you or respect you?" And I was, I don't know, 10 minutes out of college, and I said, "It's more important that they respect me." And he had a different answer. And he said, it's about the love. And he shared like a really quick anecdote and it made me think. And from that day, that's what it's always been. And so I would tell someone that wants to go into teaching, make those connections with your students, show them that you love them, that you care. Even if you don't say it, they can feel it. And don't hold grudges. My kids come back from, a long time off, whether it be a suspension or anything else. I'm as happy to see them as the day they left every single time.
That's amazing.
And I welcome them right back into the building.
Well, thank you for all that you're doing. I wish I had you as a teacher. You have an incredible vibe and just the passion and the quiet confidence is infectious, and I really appreciate that. And welcome back to another incredible episode of On the Subject. Where can we actually find you on social? Where should we give you a shout out?
I'm not on social media as much.
Low key.
I'm kind of a dinosaur, low key, but I am on LinkedIn.
You can find him on LinkedIn, Tim Baldwin, an incredible school leader, an incredible human being. And we're so lucky to be able to have him on the podcast today. And again, we're highlighting the most innovative educators throughout the country. Today we're in Michigan, and we're so lucky to be able to have time with Tim. Thank you so much for your time today.
I appreciate you, Mike. Thanks.
Thank you.